Excellent. I see Commissioner Johnson. So thank you so much for stepping in and joining us. We are ready to start Public Works and Safety Standing Committee for December 6, 2021. And before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely by Zoom and some on site. All participants joining by phone should mute your phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. And during the meeting, please make sure you announce yourself by name and title when you speak so the public that's observing knows who's speaking. This is critical given our number of remote participants and its current guidance from our Kansas Attorney General. The public's allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to our meeting, and those comments are included in the record. The public can also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday prior to the meeting. The public also has an opportunity to provide brief comments tonight, either by phone or Zoom, or from the lobby of the municipal office building. My name is Melissa Bynum, Commissioner at Large District 1. I will now call the meeting of Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order. And if the clerk would call the roll, please.
Roll call. Groneman. Philbrook.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Johnson sitting in for Ramirez.
Here.
Markley. Here. Bynum.
Here. There's a revision to the agenda tonight. We removed item 1, which would have been a resolution to enter into a lease purchase agreement with Zoll Medical for defibrillators, reusable sensors, and case review subscriptions. So that item has been removed, and we have no minutes to approve this month. So the only item left is item number 2, which is a quarterly update from our fire department, and Chief Callahan is here to make that presentation. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Commissioner and everyone else. I won't take up too much of your time. I just wanted to touch on, highlight a few topics. So as you know, the Local 64 and the UG have agreed to a paramedic incentivization, which will add 9% to the base pay rate for current firefighter paramedics. We also agreed to move the starting pay to step 2. It's currently step 3. So that will be a starting pay raise for incoming paramedics and those paramedics who are currently employed who haven't yet reached step 2. They'll be moved up to step 2. Also, current firefighter EMTs, those who are not paramedics, who are accepted into a certified accredited paramedic program will immediately receive the 9% differential pay while they take their courses at the college. KCKFD will pay for classes, books, labs, and fees as necessary. And after the paramedic student passes the course and has licensure as a firefighter paramedic, they'll receive a $10,000 stipend. Those were all agreed to and signed off on and ratified. And furtherance of that, negotiations have restarted with Local 64 and cautiously optimistic relative to progress. The Turner Fire Station groundbreaking is scheduled for the second quarter of 2022. We have a new recruit class that begins on the 17th of January. COEs are currently being offered. I'm told this is the most diverse recruit class in KCKFD history. 56% of the recruits are from historically underrepresented groups. That includes 31% female recruit COEs. And the remainder of the 44% is obviously not from underrepresented groups, but this is a significant improvement. It's a light year improvement over some of our past recruiting efforts. So we're pretty proud of the efforts that our people put in on that. And the final thing is the training campus. Many of you have heard about the new training campus. The phase 1 of that is to be awarded December 8th. That is a $500,000 grant. If you get into phase 1, there's about 60 entities that will be accepted into phase 1. Each of them will receive $500,000 in furtherance of their initiatives that they proposed. And that will be pared down to between 20 and 40 entities for phase 2 of the project, which could be up to $100 million. And that is all I have. I will answer any questions I can from anybody if they'd like to ask.
Are there any questions for the Chief Commissioner Kane?
Yes. Hang on, there we go. Thanks, Chief. Really appreciate the update. I would personally like to be kept in the loop on how that's going, because that won't just affect that our guys. It'll affect a whole vast number of other unions. And I think this project is just short of fantastic. Matter of fact, it's fantastic.
Okay, you've gone from just short of to actually fantastic.
Absolutely. Anytime we can have something like this to promote our kids and bring into our community is exactly what we need. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
I would echo that. I really appreciate it. The grant is exciting. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I didn't realize that we would know something so quickly. So that's really exciting. Who else has a comment or question for Chief Callahan? Commissioner Philbrook?
Yes, although this is probably the last meeting I'm going to see you at, Chief. I will, anyway, in this official capacity, I would like to, as a citizen, still be informed as to what's going on with this project, if you don't mind. And that can go to janephilbrook@gmail.com, Chief. Thank
Okay,
you much.
you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from anyone? All right, Chief, I guess we'll let you go. Have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas,
Thank you.
and a Happy New Year, and I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Same to you all. Thank you.
This was our only agenda item. Commissioner Markley, I think I'm getting the easier side of our agenda tonight. And that does conclude Public Works and Safety. I want to thank everybody for being here, and we are adjourned. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Markley for Administration and Human Services.
All right, thank you very much. Before I call this meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of the meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday before the meeting. The public also will have the opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the lobby of the municipal office building. I will now call the meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call, Philbrook,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Johnson sitting in for Ramirez,
Here.
Bynum,
Here.
Markley.
Here, thank you very much. There was a blue sheet sent out adding an item relating to a vehicle stipend for the mayor. That item has been removed pending further adjustment. So we will see that on a future agenda, I trust. We also have no minutes to approve. So that takes us to our committee agenda item 1, which was extension of moratorium on enforcement of murals. And Gunnar Hant is listed as the person to, oh, there he is. Hello, Gunnar. Present this item for us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Before you tonight, we actually have 2 agenda items, but on this one, we are asking that we extend the mural moratorium that we issued last year. We were not able to work on that project, and so we're asking for another 6 months. Why we believe we can get it done in 6 months is we were approved to create an ordinance study section. So we hope in the next month or so, we will be hiring somebody who will focus just on ordinance amendments as well as the zoning code update and this project in particular. So we just didn't have the bandwidth in the last 6 months. We were bullish on the original deadline of the end of this calendar year. We haven't seen any issues arise regarding murals in residential properties in that time, so that's a good thing. We think we have enough. We think we have a little bit more time to get this done the right way, and we're asking for 6 more months till June 30th.
We need a motion.
Commissioner Bynum, move approval.
Second, Commissioner Kane.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments from the commission or clerk if there are any comments received from the public?
No comments were received.
All right, then a roll call on the motion.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
I'm sorry, aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. Thank you very much, Mr. Hand. You are up again to talk about COVID-19 emergency zoning ordinances to be made permanent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. I do have a small correction on this agenda item. We noticed it as making them permanent, which is more intensive than what our actual request is today. So I think we're good to go. Instead of making them permanent, we're also asking for another 6 months. When we started to dig in the last 2 months on this case, we realized pretty quickly that it was going to take a lot more bandwidth to make them permanent. If you remember in the summer of 2019, directly after the pandemic, we had issued 5 ordinances and 2 resolutions. We've consolidated all of those into 2 ordinances and 1 resolution, but that is basically all the amount of bandwidth we had, again, prior to hiring an ordinance study section or creating an ordinance study section in the Planning and Urban Design Department. So we're asking for another 6 months, again, to June 30th, to keep them, to keep the current ordinances and resolutions in effect. These are the open streets. These are the farmers market expansions, the outdoor dining, outdoor taverns, everything we've already approved. We believe, again, with the recent variant, it might very well be valid to do it just because of that in and of itself for another 6 months. But again, in the last 2-ish years, year and a half that we've had all of those ordinances in place, we've had a couple of issues that we've had to work through with applicants in order to implement these things, but we believe that it's working as we had hoped. So we think that in the 6 months, our intent is to work through them and see if they can, in fact, all become permanent. But we need to do that work over the next 6 months. So staff hopes you can extend this for another 6 months for us.
Commissioner Bynum, question?
No, statement. Gunnar, please don't make the pandemic any longer than it has been. It was July of 2020. And I would move to approve, please.
To approve a 6-month extension, just to be clear, since the agenda is different.
Yes, thank you. A 6-month extension. Thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook, second.
All right,
Commissioner
clerk,
Kane,
any
question?
comments from, go ahead.
We're still doing this though. People are still able to go out and serve. Okay, all right, great, thank you.
All right, clerk, any comments from the public?
No comments were received.
Then roll call on the motion. Thanks you.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Hand. Our next item is a presentation and resolution on requested amendments related to donated sick leave in the Human Resources Guide. I think we have several presenters here. Renee Ramirez. Oh, recording is now in progress. Bonnie Blesser and Courtney Sakin are here to present. I think I see all 3 of them in the queue here.
Thank you, Commissioner Markley. Henry Couchman, legal counsel, is also with us this evening. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Renee Ramirez, Director of Human Resources. With me this evening are two staff members from Human Resources, Bonnie Blosser, Senior HR Partner, and Courtney Sachin, HR Partner. This is the first of many upcoming sessions that we have scheduled to present modifications to the Human Resources Guide that governs unified government employees unless otherwise covered by a bargaining memorandum of understanding. The Human Resources Guide is available on employee self-service, the Human Resources Department page of the internet at www.wicokck.org, and the intranet, which is internal for unified government employees. And I believe there are still hard copies of the HR guide available in some of the departments. To begin, the policies within the Human Resources Guide are used as an outline of basic personnel policies of the organization. These policies are designed to be used as a working guide for the day-to-day operations related to personnel matters. The policies cover all employees unless there is a memorandum of understanding, which is a union contract that is in place with controlling language specific to certain topics. The written policies of the Human Resources Guide are intended to identify the proper authority and identifies the responsibility of administering the policies and the procedures. These policies can be amended by going through the county administrator for adoption by the UG Commission, which is what we're starting with this evening. This evening, we are bringing forward two policies for consideration. The first is a modification of the existing sick leave policy, donated sick leave provision within the Human Resources Guide. And the second policy that we are bringing forth is a new policy that we're going to recommend for the organization for the paid childbirth and parental leave. So we'll begin with the modifications to, we'll talk about the first one, the sick leave policy modification. Currently, this policy outlines how UG employees can actually donate sick leave to current UG employees. So the current policy at hand does have some limitations as outlined what we have here. Employees may donate up to 40 hours of sick leave per year, and they have to have a certain amount of sick leave in their bank remaining after the donation. And they're limited to only donating one set of 40 hours per calendar year. The eligibility requirements under the current policy also are pretty strict, wherein the employee who is requesting the donated sick leave has to be for their own catastrophic or life-threatening illness. They have to have been employed with the unified government for at least 5 years, and they have to have at least 120 hours of sick leave in their bank before the illness began, which is really tough for the HR staff to even try to track. They cannot have been suspended or placed in the excessive use of sick leave category for a violation of the sick leave policy in the previous 12 months. And they have to have exhausted all of their paid leave in order to be eligible for donated sick leave. Some of the changes that we're bringing forward under the new provision of the donated sick leave is we're going to approach this with a tiered process. So employees can donate up to 40 hours of sick leave, the 40 hours per year if they have 140 hours of sick leave in their bank. We're adding a new provision in there that employees that have a balance of at least 580 hours in their sick leave bank can actually donate up to 80 hours per year to those employees requesting the donated sick leave. So again, we've added the tier phase in there where we can have maybe tenured employees actually donate a little bit more time since their banks are a little bit more richer than maybe some of our newer employees. We've also changed some of the eligibility for the donated sick leave. We've expanded this to include employees who are in need to care for their minor children who have a life-threatening or catastrophic illness. Remember, under the current policy that we have today, it's just for the employee. It also is expanded to include employees who have a serious medical condition. This is a new provision that we're outlining in this new policy, the revisions to the policy. We're also modifying the length of service requirements. So for catastrophic or life-threatening illness for the employee or a minor child, it's going to be, you have to have been employed here for 1 year. If you have a serious medical condition, it will be for 5 years. So again, there's a tiered approach for those two situations. There is no accumulation requirement. And let's see, when we were checking the sick leave, where if you were listed as a abuser of sick leave, let's just say, or categorized as an excessive user of sick leave, instead of doing a look back for 12 months, we will now do the look back for 24 months. I'm going to share with you the definition of a serious medical condition. This is a new definition that we have put in this policy. It's one of the definitions that was not in the existing policy, and it's an illness or injury that is debilitating or incapacitating, whose treatment is debilitating or incapacitating, that requires hospitalization or extended recovery lasting 14 days or more, during which the employee is unable to work. There are some provisions in there that the serious medical condition does not cover. For example, common infections and infection diseases like, the common cold, seasonal or allergies, things of that nature. So those are the modifications to the sick leave policy, donated sick leave provision. This next policy.
Renee, I'm sorry. This is Alan Howe, Assistant County Administrator. Let me just ask the desire of the chair. So we've got this, and there's two separate items on the agenda. If you want to stop and have discussion on this, or if you want then to continue with the presentation and then take each of those items for discussion and action afterwards. It's your pleasure.
Sorry about that, Alan. Yes.
No, you're fine. I think it makes sense to take any questions on this item now while it's fresh in everybody's mind. So questions on the donated sick leave policy, commissioners? All right, I'm seeing none. Going once, going twice. All right, well, having seen no questions on that item, shall we go ahead and vote on that item since we had no questions? Are we prepared to make a motion on this item before proceeding to the next one?
Commissioner, this is Henry Couchman. There's actually a resolution that accompanies this item that you'll be voting on. It's to approve the policy.
So this is Commissioner Philbrook, and I move to accept the resolution as presented on donated sick leave.
Commissioner Mike Kane, second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Roll call on the motion.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. And we will turn it right back over to our Human Resources group to discuss what is item number 4 on our agenda, the new policy on childbirth and parental leave. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you, commissioners. So this next item on the agenda, the paid childbirth and parental leave policy. This is a new policy that we are proposing for our organization. This policy will provide us with the opportunity to be competitive in the market by offering paid leave to candidates who may be considering the unified government for employment. It also does another thing for us. It also is the ability for us to retain good employees that already work here to be eligible for this paid childbirth and parental leave policy. So it's kind of a two-pronged benefit for employees. One, so we can be competitive in the market, and two, so we can retain employees that we currently have employed here. So the first portion of this is a leave that will be available to employees who give birth to a child or children to provide time for recovery for childbirth before returning to work. And the amount of leave basically is providing full-time employees with 240 hours of this paid leave to recover from childbirth. We also have part-time A employees who have also UG benefits and that are eligible for this type of leave. And those employees who are part-time A who traditionally work at least 20 hours a week up to 39 would be eligible for 120 hours of paid leave. And this leave is on a continuous basis. The second piece of this parental leave policy is paid leave that is available to eligible employees to bond with their child or their children after childbirth, or for the placement of the employee for adoption or foster care. Again, this is a separate leave from the childbirth leave. So this is for the bonding and the caring for the children, and includes the adoption and foster care. The amount of leave, again, we did a tiered approach. Full-time employees would be eligible for 160 hours per qualifying event, and part-time A employees would be eligible for 80 hours per qualifying event. And this leave may be taken continuously, intermittently, or on a reduced schedule. And what I mean by reduced schedule is if this employee wanted to, let's say, work a week and then come back to work and then work another week, they would have to work that out with the department head and get approval before they actually do some type of reduced schedule. But there is a little bit of flexibility with the paid parental leave. There are some limitations that we have placed on the paid parental leave. The paid parental leave may be taken for only one qualifying event in a 12-month period. So for instance, if an employee has already taken the leave and something else occurs, or they adopt another child, they only have that leave one time in that 12-month period. Paid parental leave must be used within 16 weeks of the qualifying event. If it is not used within that time frame, that leave will be forfeited. And then the paid childbirth and parental leave will run concurrently with FMLA, as we typically do with all other instances with running FMLA. Some additional information in regards to this leave is there is an estimate cost of approximately $250,000 to $500,000, depending on the number of staff who take the leave in a given year and upon the length of time that they take the leave. Typically, the unified government does average about 50 births a year on our health plan. That's kind of what we're seeing. And one of the most important things is that there are surrounding jurisdictions that offer this same type of leave to their employees and to candidates who are looking to be employed by those organizations. Some of those we have noted here: Johnson County, Kansas City, Missouri, the state of Kansas, Jackson County, and Sedgwick County. So again, offering this type of leave for our employees and for those potential candidates who are looking to the unified government as an option for their employment, this is very, very important for us to remain competitive in the market and really to basically show those candidates and our internal employees that we do value the work-life balance here at the unified government.
This is Alan House, Assistant County Administrator. I'll add to it that there's a lot of research showing that the health outcomes for mothers and for children are improved by having this leave available, both the recovery leave as well as the bonding leave, and that the effects of that last for a long, long time. So this is also an investment in the health of our workforce and of our community. And I also want to just say a thanks to Henry Couchman and UG Legal for the design of this. They kind of looked at what is the EEOC guidance, what are some of the best practices from other communities that have implemented this, and developed this approach, which really is the kind of this two-part approach that meets the objectives of providing leave and care while also making sure that we kind of steer clear of some of the other sort of challenges that other places have come across when implementing these sorts of leave policies. So we think that this, as designed, meets the objectives and avoids some of those thickets.
Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Renee, could you go back 2 slides and then 1? So just trying to make sure I understand. And then the next slide, please. paid parental leave. Okay, and one more. Okay, this is the one I just, my daughter was born 3 months premature. And she lived in the NICU for 93 days before she came home. So it looks to me like, I don't know if that is spoken to at all in what's being described here, although I see the paid parental leave must be used within 16 weeks of the event. And that would be 4 months in an extreme case like mine. I did take my leave when I brought my daughter home, not when she was born. I just don't know if we need to speak to that any further or not. It just caught my attention.
And this Allen House, others can speak to this, but that's an interesting example because it actually in some ways speaks to the previous policy that was just adopted as well, which is the kind of expansion of donated sick leave for use of family members who are in a kind of a catastrophic, life-threatening illness situation. So the goal of both of these kind of policies is the taking care of and providing for the health needs of the workforce. And this, so we could, in that specific example, Renee can jump in and provide perhaps more details on it.
If I'm understanding this, your example appropriately, is that you would get leave for childbirth, and then you would have, from the time the child is born, from that date, you have 16 weeks out to invoke your or use the parental leave.
I see. So you would have your leave for having the child, which would be different from leave for parental leave to care for the newborn. Am I understanding you?
Yes,
Okay,
these are two separate types of leave.
I
The
see.
one is specific to childbirth, and the other is for parental leave.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I think that this situation would cover, for example, my extreme, experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner
Just
Philbrook?
to clarify, if I could, just so Commissioner Bynum, so a woman who gave birth would have 6 weeks of that childbirth recovery leave and then 4 weeks of the bonding leave. So a total of 10 weeks of leave that she would be eligible for. And, if there was a partner in that relationship, that they would have 4 weeks of bonding leave eligible to them, if that helps.
It does. And I guess the real crux for me is that if there's a break of 93 days or, 60 days in between those two types of leave, then that appears to be allowable under this policy.
As long as it falls within that 16 weeks from the birth.
And would it need to conclude or just begin?
Henry, I'll defer to.
Commissioner, I believe it would need to conclude under the way the policy is currently written. Honestly, I did not even consider a premature birth in writing this. So maybe I should have, because I went through an experience similar to yours. But right now, the way this is written, this 6 weeks of childbirth leave would begin at the time of birth. And then that would be 6 weeks. And then for the other 4 weeks, the mother anyway would have basically 10 weeks in which to use that leave, an additional 4 weeks.
Yeah, I just wonder about it because 6 weeks. So again, speaking only to my example, I would certainly not need 6 weeks of childbirth leave with no baby at home. And I mean, this was what was so bizarre about the experience at the time that it was happening. I had a baby, but she wasn't at home with me. And she didn't come home for 3 months. So at that point, the clock's now ticking for me to have any time off with her. Like I said, because this is personal to me, that really caught my attention.
This is Henry Couchman again. You know, we picked the 16 weeks because we're trying to find some way to, I guess, limit the impact on departments of having to have employees absent for a very long period of time. This is already 4 months.
Right. Let me ask this question. Would you have 16 weeks in which to take it? You wouldn't necessarily have 4 full months of leave,
Right.
if I'm reading this right. But what if you, I mean, do we have allowance for combining varieties of leave? I don't want to make this harder than it is. I appreciate what you're doing.
Is there just an opportunity for individuals in extreme circumstances to have that discussion with their supervisor? I guess might be another question, you know. Can there be language drafted that would provide for some sort of review in circumstances that are not typical?
We could certainly see about drafting something and taking another look at this particular provision and seeing what we could do with that. You know, we have a total of about 10 weeks of leave for the mother if you combine the 2 leaves. And then there is, of course, regular sick leave and donated sick leave that can be used as well. But we can certainly take another look at this 16 weeks and how that might work for premature infants.
Yeah, I could just certainly imagine the frustration of a parent who's thinking, well, the bonding time isn't going to do any good if the only time I can take the bonding time is when I can't bond.
Well, one way we could do that is just to change the parental leave so that it could be taken or started, you know, a longer period of time. I don't see the childbirth leave changing probably because that's mainly to recover from childbirth. That's its rationale, to provide an opportunity for that as well as to care for the infant. But with the 4-week parental leave, we could probably do something on that.
Again, I think we just kind of, you know, we identified that 16 weeks because in consideration of the departments and the employees, and this also, you know, would generate in some instances the requirement of overtime to cover certain things. So we were trying to limit that time so that way we didn't have individuals actually extending way beyond using this leave.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense too. That's why I just wonder if the easiest way to handle it is to allow for, you know, exceptions to be negotiated in extreme circumstances, because I think for most moms, exactly as it's written is going to work just fine. But there are, you know, always circumstances where that might not be the case. So that's why I thought it might just be easiest to say that there's an opportunity for differences depending on the situation. Commissioner Philbrook.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at the statement. So Henry, this is like for you, okay? When you say qualifying event, could not the qualifying event be when the child comes home out of out of the NIC unit, the neonatal unit? Does it have to be the childbirth time? That's pretty,
Uh,
qualifying event is pretty wide open, son.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think that we could work on that. The qualifying event for the childbirth leave, again, generally will be childbirth.
Right, but you understand my question.
Yeah, sure. I understand. That's something that warrants some thought.
I know, leave it to me to get down in the weeds, but it's, to make sure that we are covering our bases, but that we're not putting ourselves in a corner, like in Melissa Bynum's situation or somebody else that might have it. So I just thought I would throw that in there as a look at.
Okay.
I think we were
And I think
trying
we
to
can look
design
at
to the
language.
simplest sort of policy, and then to Commissioner Markley's point, have a by exception kind of approach rather than trying to design the policy to
Around that,
fully encompass the many sort of possibilities that we know exist around this topic and these issues.
Additional questions?
So does
So-
so this Commissioner Philbrook, so does that mean we're going to look at modifying this before we try to pass this particular one? What's the next step? That would be my question.
Yeah, Henry, what shall we do here?
Well, this is right now, this policy provides that it goes into effect January 1st of this next year. So if we don't approve it now and don't get it to the commission in December, it won't go into effect then. And the people who may need to use it will have to wait if we bring it back. That's the only thing we can. If you want to go through and pass it as is, we can certainly go back and look at modifying it and bringing it back. Otherwise, we can
also, Henry, maybe if I, sorry to interrupt you, to suggest if we passed as proposed tonight and then came back with a kind of a chairman's mark or commission mark for the full committee and pull it off of consent and vote on it through an adopted with some of these pieces worked out over the next week and a half. I don't think it would take long to work through them and then adopt at the full commission meeting off of the consent agenda.
Okay.
I do
Sounds
have
like
a
a way.
question though, but I mean, are you talking about extending the 16 weeks? Because again, I do have a concern for a lot of department heads that if we go beyond 16 weeks for allowing this, it would be subject to possibly having staff out longer than expected, which does create some hardships for some departments. So are we merely talking about maybe adding a sentence that talks about visiting some exceptions and to the rule in the event of, let's say, an early birth due to premature or something of that nature?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is that this commission doesn't intend to extend the 16 weeks for everyone necessarily, but we want there to be an availability for someone who has a need, an actual, need related to how the birth occurred or the situation occurred to have their exception reviewed. If any other commissioners, if that's not what you're thinking, speak now or forever hold your peace. Commissioner Bynum.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Markley. This is Melissa Bynum, and I'm not opposed to the notion of passing this with language that says we'll maybe have a little bit fuller discussion on the full commission agenda. But I appreciate Ramirez's concern, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around the notion that this bullet point that says paid parental leave must be used within 16 weeks of is not indicating that someone will be gone for 16 weeks unless I'm misunderstanding the bullet point. I worked the entire 3 months that my daughter was in the NICU, and then she came home and I took my leave, where I can see a problem is that according to this policy, my time, I would have 4 weeks left because my time would be running out because the clock's ticking, because I'm within this 16 weeks of the qualifying event. So, but I'm not opposed to passing the policy with the understanding that we would perhaps revisit it, even if it's just that statement that some very narrow specific, I don't even know what I'm trying to say now. What you said, Commissioner Markley.
So do you think modifying the language that says instead of it being used within 16 weeks, that, you could start it, let's say, in the 15th week? And then your 4 weeks, is that kind of what you're?
I think that's what I'm thinking. I guess the must be used within 16 weeks is bothering me a little bit, but not because somebody's going to be gone for 16 weeks, but because if baby doesn't come home till week 15, then now I'm in trouble because I've got 1 week to be home with her.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the length of the time the person is gone that we're concerned about. It's when that time happens. Yeah, when it starts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So would it, if we had the language there that had the ability for the administrator to make determinations in exceptional circumstances to adjust this, would that be kind of sufficient?
Thank you, Alan. That's exactly the words I was looking for. And our lawyer can make that into legalese and bring that to us perhaps at the full commission meeting. Would that be acceptable? And I can make a motion to accept the resolution to adopt this this leave policy. Commissioner Bynum.
And you make that motion subject to an amendment similar to what was just outlined by Alan House?
Subject to that, thank you.
Second by Commissioner Philbrook.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, do we have any comments from the public?
No comments were received.
A roll call on that motion. And then just of note, I think staff, the suggestion is that this would be then on the full commission agenda, correct? But it will not be on the consent agenda, so it'll be up for discussion with that amended language.
All right. Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. Thank you very much. Good discussion. All right, that takes us to item number 5, which is our last item. It is a presentation on the progress made on the implementation of the UG's new Workday Human Capital and Financial Management Solutions project. So we are going to hear from Kathleen. I have on my agenda, but it looks like Crystal is here with us. So I don't know who's taking it, but whoever wants to may, in my opinion.
Well, Commissioner Markley, this is Crystal Sprague. I'm the project director for the Workday ERP implementation project. I am thrilled to be joined by our executive sponsors today, Mr. Alan House, Ms. Renee Ramirez, and Ms. Kathleen Von Atchen. They're our executive sponsors. My co-project manager, I do not think joined us today. Her name is Gail Jones, and we work very closely together on making sure that the Workday product is implemented successfully with our teams throughout the unified government. Commissioner Markley, if you could confirm that you see our presentation, we'll get rolling. Okay. Well, again, my name's Crystal Sprague. We are now 1 year. We are past our first 1 year milestone mark in our Workday implementation project. It seems like it just started, but we are quickly approaching our go live date in July of 2022. We'd like to offer a brief background on the project for those who are not familiar with this technology improvement. The Workday implementation project began because our current financial system had not been updated or had not been replaced since 1997 or prior thereto. Our human resources systems were not integrated, and our human resources finance and procurement products were working independently, and we were looking at a digital improvement to workflow and advanced analytics so that we could have real information at our fingertips that was actionable. Cross-functional teams started to define the need for an integrated system of record that could unite all of our processes, improve our efficiencies, and make our daily product more effective in how we work with the public and for the public. COVID-19 obviously amplified that need, and Workday was selected and our project kicked off November of 2020. Workday is a dynamic and flexible system that meets our current needs, but also can grow and change with us to meet our future needs. It's information and data at our fingertips. It takes data out of our individual systems and puts it together, so we're not standalone activities any longer. It's one place for contextual and actionable data in real time, and it transitions our multiple systems into the power of one. So pretty incredible product, and we're really lucky to be taking part in the Workday implementation. You'll hear me mention from time to time Accenture. Accenture works as our implementation partner and helps us through our business process alignment, moving toward full implementation of our product. Our project is governance encourages the business process. Decisions and innovations happen with the experts. So our governance model encourages those subject matter experts on the lines, front lines, doing the work every day to make some of those innovative decisions that will make the product work the best for us. But it elevates any major change in policy or process up to and in a comprehensive manner to our cross-functional executive team, which I've mentioned already. We've previously shared the mission and vision and the pillars of success of this project, but we thought it was worth for today's presentation to reshare our goals. These are the goals that drive us in our activity every day. And these goals were set at the commencement of the project, not only from our executive sponsors and our project leads, but also our subject matter experts. We take these goals very seriously. We are always looking for ways to measure our product as we're building it and configuring it in these goals and making sure that we're meeting the goals when we go live, but then also after in years to come. Our process for implementation has 5 parts. Accenture, our implementation partners, help us through those parts. For the most, every single one of our work streams have passed the business process alignment, where we took a really hard look, intimate look at our business processes, where the breakdowns were and where innovation could happen with the Workday product. Then we began to architect, meaning we're looking at our data, we're loading our data in the system and really designing how those business processes were going to work. And then configuration is really loading that data and starting to design the system on our own. Like I said, for the most part, all of our work streams are now in the testing phase of our project. It is the most intense phase of our project and lasts almost 6 months, or the last 6 months of our project. The testing is layered in different areas, not only in a what we call unit test or what's happening within the individual work streams, but moving into what's called end-to-end testing, where we are testing the product from the beginning, maybe the very first time we hire an employee, all the way through the life cycle of that employee, up through retirement and all the variations that could occur. So as you can imagine, the testing in an end-to-end testing scenario is very intense and very robust as we are going through each one of those processes and making sure that all of our subject matter experts have an opportunity to get their hands on the product and see how those business processes are going to flow, and that the teams have been working so hard to architect and configure. At the same time, while we're doing this end-to-end or very in-depth testing, we're also building training curriculum. Most of our subject matter experts and leads have had an exposure or training up to this point. Now we move into the phase where we're training those end users. To do that, we utilize what's called change managers or change ambassadors. And these are folks within the organization who have volunteered to be our points of contact to help us develop and train all of our end users on the parts and pieces of the Workday product that they will be using. There's another look at the calendar. It is a high-level calendar. The first section that you see up at the top is our what we call phase 1. That's our core HCM or human resources, payroll, and time tracking. It is the longest phase of our project. The second phase is the second diagram that you see, and that's our phase 2. And those are our workday deployments and financials. So that's your budgeting, procurement, banking and settlement, business assets, and more in that second phase. And then our last phase, which is has not kicked off yet, but is last to kick off, is our talent, learning management, and recruiting. So much of the work for the third phase has already been done in the business process analysis, but we've still got some configuration and testing to do there. So this is not a fair representation. I'll tell you, I show this calendar a lot. It's not a fair representation of the dependencies and the work that has to be produced to move along this calendar in a successful way, and the high level of work that each one of the work streams does to get to these calendar dates and surpass these calendar dates. But it kind of gives us a good high level timeline of what can be a really expansive project in a pretty clean way. So our arrow indicates that we're right here, December of 2021. We're beginning that comprehensive testing phase for phase 1, that end-to-end testing. We're finishing up config and prototype for phase 2, moving into some unit testing that's embedded into configure and prototype. And then February of 2022, we'll start with phase 3, which is the talent, LMS, and recruiting. We have a better idea than the last time we spoke to you and gave you this project status update on exactly what work streams we are focused on. Our phase 1 here broke down into human capital, compensation, absence, et cetera. And phase 2 is that financial work stream. There are 10 separate work streams in the financial department, and they range all the way from our grants to our projects to our budget and banking settlement and what our assets are within the unified government. So very complex work streams, but divided up into a couple of different phases. And then again, we have our phase 3 for talent management and recruiting. We've yet to start that, although a lot of the work has already been done. We have some additional work streams here that don't nicely tuck into a phase 1, 2, or 3. And these are additional products that are modules within the Workday product that will help us really utilize the platform to the best of our abilities. And those are Prism, Adaptive, and Strategic Sourcing. Prism is really going to give us the power to leverage our historical data that we bring into the Workday system and pull a lot of information, not only current, but also historical information to make good, solid decisions in the worlds of budgeting and finance, as well as in human capital management. And then Adaptive is a budget planning tool that will complement the budget work stream and work well with that budget work stream seamlessly from the beginning of the discussion when budget planning starts all the way through the execution of the budget in our daily cycle. And strategic sourcing is just that. It's strategic sourcing. It will start our procure to pay process and handle the contracts, sourcing RFX events, and supplier vetting, and then flow seamlessly into the other half of that Workday module, which is procurement. Throughout the very specific work streams, every single work stream available that you see here always has a data migration piece, an integration piece, a reporting, testing, project management, security, and mobile application. So those are the work streams that go across all the different phases of our project implementation and are most critical when we talk about being able to build a product and utilize that product. We definitely want to test it, we want to report against it, and we need to have our data be accurately loaded into the new system so that we can work and test effectively. So the functional work streams organize not only the work for the project implementation, but it also begins to forge us truly in a cross-functional approach to how we do our work. So often in the past, we've considered a department level work to be department level work. The Workday product forces us to think across departments in a very cross-functional way for the care and keeping of the Workday environment post-production. So the work streams get us ready during implementation, but really they're getting us ready for post-go live or post-production and how we're going to work together to make sure that we are growing within the system and we're using the system to the best of its abilities. I've mentioned a couple of times the heavy team involvement. Numerous and various departments are involved in the project to date, many leading work streams. Some of those work streams align with traditional department type work streams, but this project implementation doesn't stop with just what's going on in that department level aligned work stream. We start to bring in all those subject matter experts from other departments that interact in that work stream on a regular basis so that we can build the most comprehensive business processes that we can. So you can see here the various departments that are involved at a project implementation process. Very comprehensive list of departments, certainly not all of our departments, but a lot involved in that direct team accountability every day. One that I will draw out specifically is our timekeepers. Timekeepers are all over our organization and have some interesting requirements that they have to meet within their organizations that they have to make sure that they are testing and are aware of. So we have an expanded time tracking group that brings in some of those various considerations. If it's a bargaining unit or shift work or 24/7 work versus a traditional 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, we want to make sure that those time tracking variations are tested, they're built appropriately, and they're effective. So we have lots of different folks coming in from a time tracking perspective. And then our change ambassadors, which I mentioned just a few slides previous. Our change ambassadors range across our organization and are really those folks on the ground who will help us understand what people need to know about the product and will help us be able to show off the product, but also test the product and train the product inside the individual departments. So we're taking the information to the employee rather than putting the employee in a position to have to come into a training class. We're going to them, and those change ambassadors are critical in that effort. The change ambassadors are also doing communications, website page development, and anything that we can do to help with the change management of this product moving into July. So the big question always is, well, how is the project going? And the great response that we get to give is the project is going wonderfully. It is a very difficult, challenging process, and it is incredibly difficult to pull on people who have regular 40-hour-a-week jobs to work on something so complex. But our project health today is in the green. Our overall project health, our budget is in the green, our timeline, we're right on time with where we should be at in the project, and our stakeholder engagement is very high. So what are we focused on next? We're focused on what post-go live looks like. How are we going to govern this product? How are we going to make changes if changes need to be made? Who's responsible for what moving forward? And how are we going to maintain that cross-functional belief system that we have during implementation? We're also looking at that comprehensive cross-functional training, that organizational change management as we move into the late winter and early spring, and then high-level end-user training. We thought we would end tonight by giving you a sample of a business process that we are changing within Workday and will be deployed within Workday that affects and impacts each and every employee during their life cycle here. For the most part, affects each and every employee, but could definitely affect each one. It's easy to talk to the project status, where we're at on the calendar, but we want to make it real. And we want to give you an example of what this product is really going to be able to do on a basic level. So at some point, most of us as employees here at the UG we've had to change our address. We've moved, we've bought a house, we've had some kind of change in our residency. And we want to walk you through a journey map of the experience that the employee has today and that the work streams have today in trying to execute that change of address. We've all had to do it at some point inside the organization, but we are all familiar with how it goes really well if we have to change our address with our insurance agency or the DMV, and we've all had experiences where it's not gone smoothly. We want to tell you what that business practice is today and then show you what Workday is going to allow us to do in the future and what your employees have built the Workday product to do in the future. So this is a journey map of a current process for change of address. Currently, the employee or the employee supervisor tells the supervisor, hey, I'm about to move, or somehow there's a communication that the employee is going to be changing address. The employee is then directed to notify HR or is given an affidavit of change of address or initiates the process on our ESS self-serve. There's different ways that the employee can go about it, and at times that causes some confusion. When that confusion occurs, inevitably what happens is that employee calls human resources. They're our source of truth, and we go there to say, hey, what do I need to do to make sure that you have my change of address within the appropriate amount of time, and so that I'm complying with the policy. HR shows the employee typically where to find the printable affidavit. It's either emailed or HR helps us find it on the intranet, or they come up to the office and pick it up. So again, various ways that the employee can get that affidavit, but it's usually in paper form. We're either printing it off on an email, we're picking it up, or we're printing it off on the intranet. The employee then prints that document off, fills it out, and then needs to combine it with some type of proof of change of residency. It can be a couple of pages long, or it can be up to 60 pages long, depending on the type of documentation the employee is providing. So the employee turns that affidavit into the supervisor. The supervisor typically makes a copy of that, or they email it and retain the original copy and they send it off to HR. But there's some type of exchange of paper in that process. When the supervisor keeps that copy and sends the original off to HR grabs it and they put a file stamp on the top so that they know the date that they received that change of address. HR is going to review the papers, maybe 60, 70 pieces of paper. They're going to accept the change of residency, or they're going to say, hey, we're missing some information, and that's going to create an email dialogue with the employee. At some point, when that information is brought in, it gets passed to the benefits team so that the benefits team can be prepared to change all the addresses in all the databases that the benefits team manages external to the UG. And then when HR reviews all the possible areas and says, okay, we're going to accept this change of residency, the affidavit is correct, HR then starts the process of updating all those various systems. So that address is manually changed in our financial system, but also up to 8 additional systems of record. And those could be our dental or medical provider, or they could even be our Mission Square ICMA RC provider for retirement. HR manually updates their own database. So all that information is updated in up to now 10 systems. And then the file is attached with a sticker and retained for the full record, that paper file. Is everybody really excited to change their address now? So this is a manual process and it has very limited visibility. The paper record could include 4 to 60 pieces of paper every time an employee changes their address. It's printed, it's filled out, it's handed back and forth. If we need to look at it for any reason in the future, we have to go to HR and pull that hard copy. The HR databases don't interact with any of the financial databases or the vendors. The approval process is manual, and sometimes we need a decoder for that approval process. So it's ripe for errors and efficiencies. On the right side of your screen, you'll see an example of Minnie Mouse trying to change her residency, and all the work that goes into changing that proof of insurance and all the steps that I just described on the prior slide. So what will it look like in Workday? In Workday, the employee, at any time that they wish, at any hour of the day, if they so choose, can log on to the Workday portal. They can upload their proof of residency. They can electronically fill out their affidavit. They can review all the requirements and the available documentation needed, and they can track the progress once they hit submit. They can see it in real time. Where is that document at, and has it been approved? And then we skip 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, and we go right to HR receives the documentation electronically by notification. It's routed in a business process for approval. And all the communication can be developed in Workday to send or reject, approve or reject that change of address. The benefits change business process will start automatically. No paper has to be pushed to the benefits administrator. The addresses are changed with those 10 systems automatically through successful integration. And the electronic file is retained and accessible by HR, supervisors, and employees without having to pull that manual file. This will take a matter of minutes to do if done during business hours versus something that took much, much longer to do for a simple change of address. So I know that's a lot of information, but we wanted to provide some kind of real context for a simple business process that will be adjusted in our Workday portal. Many more to come. We have the change ambassadors have created a Workday informational portal, which the link is available here in your presentation. It's been a difficult undertaking for the last several months. The UG team stay absolutely committed to this process. The paths are becoming clearer every day as we move into testing. At the start of the presentation, I mentioned that this technology investment was a technology investment, and we were embarking on this great technology that we were going to implement and have at our fingertips. But I should have done that with a disclaimer. This is not just a technology install, but it's an undertaking to examine the policies and processes and our mindset that we use to do our daily work of government operations. So it really is more than just a technology install. At this time, I want to say thank you for your time as I rambled about this product that we're so excited about, and ask the executive committee if they have any comments that they'd like to share.
Thank you, Crystal. And I really appreciate actually the example that demonstrates just how many efficiencies this can create in a very simple process. So I think sometimes it's hard for us to envision what this product is actually going to do, but that was a great example and helpful, I think. Any questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Philbrook?
First, a comment. I want to thank Crystal Sprague and her whole team, because I know that just listening to her makes my brain hurt, especially on how complicated it is. And knowing that Crystal is very good at weaving the web, I want to thank you so much for all the hard work you've done with this. So thanks a lot, Crystal. And I know there's still a lot of work yet to do. So here's one elephant in my room is, how does this affect 311, Alan? All this information is going to be weaved together.
Happy to have that conversation with you, Commissioner.
Sorry.
No. In this case, I think the answer is there's not as really that much direct sort of implications. The Workday system is really the operational financial HR system that helps us with run the operation. It's not intended to provide sort of forward-facing information. So, in the extent that it helps us kind of be better at how we manage our operations, it will affect 311 and every other department, but it doesn't necessarily have a direct impact in terms of how we convey information to the public.
Well, I just wanted everybody to understand that this is more of an HR managing program for the UG and not, thank you, directly related to the 311 situation that you're still having to work your way through, Alan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and Commissioner, if I could add, being an HR system, it is equally as important on the finance side. And we do have an incredible integration that will happen between the Workday product and OpenGov. So you guys are familiar with OpenGov. It is the platform that we use public facing to provide visibility into our financials. We will have an integration where now we have more of a manual process for keeping OpenGov up to date. So we're excited about that integration, but the financial piece is going to be equally impactful for sure.
So this is Commissioner Philbrook again. So Crystal, so does that so I'm not going to have to call the clerk's office and ask for information or call administration, say, hey, can I get information, financial information on the stuff that you guys are going to have available now?
So OpenGov will be a real-time integration. So you will be able to see that information in real time where you might have needed to wait for maybe your quarterly update on the OpenGov side.
Thank you for that clarification, Crystal.
Additional questions or comments from commissioners? All right, well, this item was for information only, and it is our final item of the evening. I will make one more comment, which is that it is also our final meeting with Commissioner Jane Philbrook. I want to thank her for her years of service on this committee, always as tonight, always good questions and comments from Commissioner Philbrook on the items before us. We appreciate her service on this committee and the many items that she's been involved in intimately as commissioner, especially workforce development has been a special passion of hers, as well as animal services, but she has always been willing to listen and take on challenges that were not her own priorities, and we appreciate that as well. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Markley. I want to chime in and express appreciation for the additional years of service on the Public Works and Safety Committee, and we've been a great team, this group of us that have come together to do this particular side of UG work, and Commissioner Philbrook's been really critical to that. Your years of service are so appreciated, and I can only hope that your constituents know how deeply you have cared for the unified government and the community and how hard you worked for everyone. So Jane, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. You're gonna make me cry. Thanks.
Commissioner Kane.
Well, I'd say everything they said and then some. We appreciate your work ethic on top of that. And you won't be missed because we'll still see you around town.
All right, crew, with that, unless Commissioner Philbrook has any comments. She says no. We appreciate your service. She says I'm going to turn off my video now. Oh, wait, Commissioner Johnson.
Well, you're going to make me turn my camera on now. Jane, I've already told you what I had to say about you, so you already know what I think about you. And I know we're going to see you around. There's no doubt about it. You know, as I've already said, it's already been said privately, or at least amongst quite a smaller group. You were one of the first. You were the first ones that reached out to me as a commissioner. So sitting next to you on the dais has been just great. One of the things that I remembered, I had no idea that we voted on the number of animals that were allowed in our yards. And I think one night we were talking about chickens, and I leaned over to Jane and I said, "So we have to legislate on animals?" And she said, "Oh yeah." She says, "Next month we're going to be talking about goats." I just fell out laughing. That was one of the more memorable moments. Just, and you said it with no smile, so I knew you were serious. So, but I thank you for your service. You know, and we'll look forward to continuing to see you in the future. Wish you all the best.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And so you're right, guys, I'm not going away. And so my new mantra is not Commissioner, but Citizen Jane from here on. So yes, I will be around. So God bless everybody. And thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and thank you, team. We are done for the night and we are adjourned.